December 22nd, 2025, and we're having the end summary of the Southern Ocean, part two it's part two of the Nectar Devotion, and it's the second ocean, the Southern Ocean of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is again our ending summary. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharni Nivasesa Sindhuvani Paskatyade Sitarani. This is also the disappearance day of Srila Jiva Goswami. And of course, Srila Jiva Goswami wrote an extensive commentary on most of the verses of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And a lot of what we're presenting here, a lot of our understanding is coming from his commentary. Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyugo Sri Jiva Gopalko. We are very much indebted to the Goswamis, especially Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami, as well as Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, for our understanding of nectar devotion. So we have a summary of the Southern Ocean. And then we want to acknowledge for our understanding here the translation of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Bhanu Swami, also the translation of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by David Haberman. I don't know his shaded name. Also, I did consultations with Vijay Somasundaram, Hari Parshad, Radha Nandamaj, and Vrajakishore regarding some of the points and some of the Sanskrit in the whole presentation here. So just reviewing that nectar devotion is authorized scripture. Why? Because Srila Rupa Goswami is always quoting from Shastra to back up his points. He's not saying anything that's not backed up from Shastra. Also because he's basing the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu on the Natya Shastra of Bharat Muni. He's not inventing this template. And also because he was instructed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As I mentioned before, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mostly instructed the science of rasa to Srila Sanatana Goswami, the guru of Srila Rupa Goswami. So Srila Rupa Goswami heard the science of rasa directly from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Prayag or Allahabad, and he also heard it from his guru, Srila Sanatana Goswami, who had heard it from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sindhu means ocean, Amrita, nectar, eternal, deathless, without death. Rasa, which Prabhupada says is very difficult to translate. He translates it as mellow. It can also mean juice, flavor, pleasure, relationship. Bhakti meaning devotion. In the Southern Ocean, we're looking at the 5 components of rasa, which is then used in the Western and Northern Ocean to define each of the staibhavs. And Prabhupada says, without some mixture of these 5 ecstatic principles, one cannot relish transcendental bliss. So Vibhava, which is the Nectar Devotion, chapters 20 to 26, Anubhava, Nectar Devotion, chapter 27, Sattvika Bhava, Nectar Devotion, chapter 28, Vyavichari or Sanchari Bhava, Nectar of Devotion, chapters 29 to 31, and Staibhav, Nectar Devotion, chapters 32 through 34. So Vibhava are the stimulants, Anubhava are the voluntary expressions, Sattvika Bhava are the involuntary expressions, Vyavichari Bhava, the various transitory emotions, and Staibhav, the basic connections. So this is the science of rasa. And from the preface of Nectar of Devotion, that Prabhupada says, Bhakti rasa is the spiritual pleasure of devotional service which one can taste by being trained in the science. And this whole book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or Nectar Devotion, is the science of devotional service. It is meant for us. It is meant for us. It is meant for us. It is giving us the instructions for how to understand bhakti, how to advance in bhakti. From the preface, bhakti means devotional service. Every service has some attractive feature which drives the servitor progressively on and on. That force which drives the philanthropist, the householder, and the nationalist is called rasa, or a kind of mellow relationship whose taste is very sweet. Bhakti rasa is a mellow different from the ordinary rasa. So rasa is the attractive feature, the taste, the pleasure that drives us, that motivates us to do anything. So that's true for material rasas and bhakti rasa. Going on from the preface, without relishing some sort of mellow or loving mood in one's activities, no one can continue to perform such activities. My dear friends, we cannot remain enthusiastic and determined in anything unless we are enjoying some kind of rasa. Similarly, in the transcendental life of Krishna consciousness and devotional service, there must be some mellow or specific taste from the service. If we're not getting some kind of taste from what we're doing, we will not be able to continue to do it. So rasa literally means juice, the substance that carries flavor. Rasa is very much connected with liquid. The flavor is what we enjoy. You could say it's the pleasure and the joy in any experience. So every different substance has a different flavor. And the supreme substance with the supreme flavor is pure love. Prema bhakti. Rasa has dynamics that are the same no matter what rasa it is. You've got the basic flavor of the experience is experienced as rasa when it gets stimulated and produces transformations and expressions in the experiencer. These are the ingredients of rasa that are being analyzed by Srila Rupa Goswami, and altogether they make rasa. So there's a basic connection. That connection is stimulated. There's an expression. There's involuntary expressions, and there's various emotional results. So the basic connection is the staibhav, the type of affection towards Krishna, the stimulants or the vibhavas, things related to that affection, the voluntary expressions or the anubhavas, the way of expressing the stimulated affection, the involuntary expressions or the sattvika bhavs, like crying and shivering, and the various emotions, the non-physical expressions, the rapture, the remorse, and so forth. So there's 3 types of expression: voluntary externally, involuntary externally, and feelings internally. So we're going to look at each of these in turn in summary. So we have the vibhava, what stimulates. Now, it's not creating, it's stimulating. The staibhav has to already be there. So in vibhava, we have the different categories. We have the alambana, which Prabhupada called basic, and then udipana, which means to light up. So the alambana is the vishaya, the object of love. Ashraya, we ourselves are the ashraya, and also other devotees who have a similar mood, and udipana's general stimulants. So, and the alambana, the vishaya is Krishna, the object of affection. Ashraya, the devotee, the reservoir of affection, other devotees who have a similar mood. Udipana, which Prabhupada calls impelling. So he calls this basic and impelling. Udipana, Krishna's qualities, adventures, dress, ornaments, flute, footprints, places, tulsi, other devotees other than the ashraya, and special days. So Krishna as the vishaya. So sometimes there's other forms when he expands as the cowherd boys. So then he appears to be both the ashraya and the vishaya. And in his own form, disguised, like Krishna just being disguised as a boatman, and undisguised. So Krishna as the vishaya. So the qualities of Krishna is a huge section about Krishna's qualities, 50 qualities that are manifest in perfected jivas, 5 extra qualities that are also manifested in Shiva, 5 extra qualities that are also manifested by Vishnu, 4 extra qualities that only Krishna manifests. They're there in Vishnu, but he doesn't manifest them. If he were to manifest them, he would be Krishna. And that's the sweetness of Leela, of devotees, of his flute, and of his form. And his sweet form is perfect in Dwarka, more perfect in Mathura, and most perfect in Vraja. So, besides his 64 qualities, we have Krishna's personality, Dhirodata, the noble hero, Dhira Lalita, the romantic and fun-loving, Dhira Prasanta, the peaceful gentleman, and Dhirodata, the haughty bad boy. So these are all the part of our object of love.
What does haughty mean, please?
Arrogant.
Thank you.
So summary of faults. So, right, there were faults that were listed as not present in the Lord. Lamentation, bewilderment, material affection, and fear are not present in him, but lamentation, bewilderment, material affection, and fear, when they originate from knowledge, do exist in the Lord. So there was a whole summary of 18 faults. And with Srila Jiva Goswami, again, it is his disappearance day today, explaining how 16 of those so-called faults actually do exist in the Lord, but in a perfect state. Other aspect of Vibhav Alambana is the Ashraya. So the devotees that inspire us in our love for Krishna. And we had two main categories, by attainment and by rasa. So by attainment, are they still sadhakas? But they'd have to be at least majjhima sadhakas. Are they siddhas in prema? Are they siddhas because they became siddhas, either by their sadhana or by mercy, or have they always been siddhas? One can also categorize the devotees by their rasa. Are they in Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, or Madhurya rasa? So anyone who's always absorbed in Krishna consciousness is called a devotee. And we have these two groups. We have the sadhakas and we have the siddhas. Then those who are siddhas, those who became perfect, either through, so a subcategory, these are two subcategories. Those who are always perfect, those who became perfect through their sadhana or through mercy. Then under Udipana, Krishna's qualities when seen distinctly from Krishna. So instead of Krishna who is beautiful, that would be the Vishaya. Krishna's beauty is a quality as in Udipana. And this is qualities can understood in terms of body, physical, and mental. Under body, Srila Rupa Goswami looks at 3 ages. Then his pastimes, so his qualities, pastimes, accessories, and miscellaneous. So under qualities, we've got bodily and verbal. Under bodily, we have 3 ages. Under accessories, we have hairstyle, flowers, tilak, and dress. Under dress, we have 2-piece, 4-piece, and elaborate. Then there's this miscellaneous category. Ornaments, flute, horn, all of these things can act as stimulus for our love. As we mentioned, when you see Krishna, who is youthful, that's alambana. Krishna's youthfulness is in udipana. And bodily qualities such as softness, mental qualities such as genius, speech qualities such as linguist, verbal and mental. Yes, correct. Under ages, in this part of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami does not give subcategories of Poganda and Kumara. He does give them in the Western Ocean. Here, I don't know why, but he only gives subcategories of Kaishora. So beginning Kaishora, 11 to 12 years old, middle Kaishora, 13 to 14, and end Kaishora, 15 to 16. Again, if you're like, oh, I really love Krishna, the perfect Poganda, that's the Vishaya. If, oh, I really love Krishna's Poganda age, then that's in Udipana. His apparel and garlands, all the miscellaneous ones, his clothing, ornaments, decorations, and other things of a similar nature, especially we may feel these things as Udipanas, right? If we're dressing the deities or we're looking at the deities, but just even looking at their different paraphernalia can act as an Udipana. And his accessories, his hairstyles, his applied cosmetics, his garlands, his body tilak, his tilak on his forehead, betel nut preparations, imitation lotuses. This is not an exhaustive list. So we have all of these various miscellaneous udipanas. Okay. Any questions on, let me go back to here. Any questions on Vibhava? Any questions or discussions on Vibhava? Yes, Nardarishi.
Hare Krishna. Lord Balaram will be Ashraya and Udipana?
Okay, that depends on your Staibhav. So let's say that your Staibhav, your Balaram's gopi. Balaram has his own gopis. Then Balaram would be your Vishaya, right? Prabhupada talks about how one can have prema for any form of the Lord. So if the main Lord you're worshiping is Lord Kapila Dev, he's your Vishaya. And if your main Lord you're worshiping is Balaram, he's your Vishaya.
So I'm
Now,
still,
for
sorry.
Balaram to be an Ashraya, you would need to be in the mood of an older cowherd boy.
Hmm.
So if your Staibhav was that of an older cowherd boy, then Balaram would be an Ashraya for you. If you are neither a direct devotee of Lord Balaram nor an older cowherd boy, Balaram would be an Udipana for you.
And so I'm still unclear why we cannot consider Radharani Vishaya.
Because she's not Vishnu.
But Krishna is
She's Shakti.
always eternally one split in two. Is she not
Still,
Godhead?
she's not, she's if a devotee loves Radha more than Krishna or any gopi more than Krishna, then it's explained that their feelings for that person are Vyavichari bhavs. And there's a particular category, I forget the name, it starts with a BH, which I mentioned in the other presentation. It's a
Mm.
particular category of Vyavichari bhav. If your primary affection, if it's still about Krishna, but you're loving Radha more than Krishna. I mean, still it's about Krishna prema. There's if you tried to have Radha as your Vishaya, she would become Durga.
Okay. I see. Hmm. Okay.
That's kind of the whole material problem. The whole material problem is instead of having Krishna as our Vishaya, we're trying to have Radha or Lakshmi Devi or Sita, as our Vishaya, which means we're then taking the role of Krishna.
Oh, okay.
We're trying to then enjoy Krishna's pleasure potency directly instead of through Krishna. So even those who have more affection for Srimati Radharani than they have for Krishna or any other gopi, Shamala or whatever, still their lovable object is Krishna. It's not that they don't have Krishna as their lovable object. So
Okay.
still the rasa is based on their love for Krishna. But in that case, their love for Radharani is Srila Rupa Goswami describes it particularly as a Vyavitari bhav. And Srila Jiva Goswami comments on that we mentioned that. Is that clear? Okay. And clear about Balaram? Excellent. Okay. Sarvani and Sri Vasuda.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I just wanted to ask you, like when one is very attached to one's guru, and the probably because we take shelter from our Diksha Guru or Siksha Guru, and if the guru is in a different rasa,
Then
so
they become an Udipana.
not Ashraya, huh?
Then they're Udipana.
I see.
Mataji, is that the case with Shamananda?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
correct.
Right. Thank you, Maharaj.
Mahalakshmi?
In relation what we're talking, hearing about from Narada Rishi, if Radharani, if a devotee, a gopi, would feel more attraction to Radharani than to Krishna, would be because the service of Radharani pleases Krishna very much, and that would be
Excellent way to explain it, yes.
okay. I wanted to
Yes.
make sure I was understanding it properly.
Yes, that's a very nice way to explain it. But the way the devotee's feeling is, I love Krishna because he's dear to Radha. So those who love Krishna more are thinking, I love Radha because she's dear to Krishna. Those who love Radha more are thinking, I love Krishna because he's dear to Radha. But
Can you
still, the
repeat? Can you
ultimate
repeat, please?
those who love Krishna more are thinking, I love Radha because she's dear to Krishna. Those who love Radha more are thinking, I love Krishna because he's dear to Radha. But
Yes,
there's still, if there is not a sthai bhav, the sthai bhav is still in relationship to Krishna.
to Krishna.
So, like, if you have, say, a Manjari Gopi who's more attached to Radha than to Krishna, she's still considered in Madhurya Bhav, correct?
Yes,
Yes. Okay. Who's her Madhurya Bhav for? Not Radharani.
Krishna,
That would
Krishna.
be bizarre.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
her Madhurya Bhav is for Krishna.
yes. They are assisting in the
They're
Madhurya.
assisting Krishna's Madhurya Bhav, but they're favoring Srimati Radharani.
Hmm.
So, yeah, and Prabhupada talks about, there's Madhurya Bhav where you directly have a romantic relationship with Krishna, and then there's Madhurya Bhav where you're not so inclined to have a direct romantic relationship with Krishna, but where you're still in that mood.
Yes,
And, it's explained that those manjaris in that mood, whatever pleasure Radharani enjoys with Krishna, they also enjoy. Even if they don't have direct contact with Krishna, most of them do, sometimes at least. But even if they don't have direct contact with Krishna, when Radharani has direct contact with Krishna, they are also enjoying that.
Mm.
So they're enjoying a romantic relationship with Krishna.
yes.
They're just enjoying it through Srimati Radharani. They're not enjoying a romantic relationship with Radharani. She's not their
Ah,
Vishay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Sure. That kind of stuff exists in this world, but not there. Okay, anything else on Vibhava? Excellent questions. Okay. Now we're going to Anubhava. So these are the voluntary expressions that are without strong bodily movement. So they're called a cool. And with strong bodily movement, and they're not literally cool in terms of temperature, but they're not as aggressive. Right? So kshepana means throwing about, like dancing, rolling, shouting, stretching, bellowing, laughing loudly, whirling about. And besides this list, there's many, many more examples. And Srila Rupa Goswami gives many examples of Anubhav. And then in the Western and Northern Ocean, he gives examples of Anubhav for each of the rasas, each of the 5 primary sthai-bhavs. But really any kind of external service that one does, being impelled by affection for Krishna, would be an Anubhav. Practically everything that we do in the Hare Krishna movement that we call service, I have some service to do, would be an Anubhav. When we're talking about service, things that we're performing externally with the body, would be as Anubhav. And we also had a detailed description of the 9 symptoms of the stage of bhava, a different meaning of the word bhava, as Anubhava, because these are categorized. This is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.3.25-26, quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 23.18-19, where the symptoms of the stage of bhava, and bhava can be considered the top stage of sadhana or the beginning stage of sadhya, depending on how you want to look at it. Srila Rupa Goswami has it as a distinct wave. So he has a wave for sadhana, he has a wave for prema, and then he has a wave for bhava. So it depends how you want to look at it. And there he gives 9 anubhavas: forgiveness, concern that time should not be wasted, detachment, absence of false prestige, hope, eagerness, a taste for chanting the holy name of the Lord, attachment to description of the qualities of the Lord, and affection for those places where the Lord resides. Any questions or discussions on anubhavs? Suppose somebody does some external service, but not motivated by any affection for Krishna, would that be an anubhav? No, it would not be an anubhav of bhakti rasa. But remember that everything we do is motivated by some kind of rasa, either bhakti rasa or some material rasa, some material perversion of bhakti rasa, right? We discussed that. Prabhupada said you can't do anything without some rasa. So if someone, as a sadhaka is doing external service without that feeling of connection with Krishna, that means they're being motivated by some material rasa. Is this clear to everybody? So what we want to do as sadhakas, which is what I discussed in one of our classes, is we want to have some kind of sambandha, some kind of connection with Krishna that's going to motivate what we're doing, so that at least we're getting a rasa basa, and at least we're getting a bhava abhasa. At least we're getting something. We're getting a glimmer. We're getting a shadow. We're getting a reflection. We're getting something. And our easiest sthai for a sadhaka is dasya. Paneshwar Lakshmi, did you want to ask me?
I think you kind of answered it. So when we're doing a service, we may not necessarily be as a sadhaka, we're just starting. So we kind of are just going through the motions. Are we not hoping to instill or cultivate or flame the actual feeling eventually? Yes?
Yes, but that will take a long time if we're just going through the motions and our consciousness is on something else.
And so that's the important of understanding what we're doing and not just doing it.
Well, not just understanding what we're doing, but having what we're doing based on some kind of feeling of connection with the Lord. Something. Either, I mean, as a sadhaka, we can get some kind of neutral or servant feeling.
Okay. So
Either God is great, God is wonderful, God is amazing, or God is my master. One of those. I mean, and Srila Rupa Goswami describes at length how this neutral sthai that it can be very common. It's available to people in general, that there's one form of neutral sthai that does not itself develop into rasa. It's not the right kind of sthai, but it's a sthai that a sadhaka can grasp as an impetus for the services. If we're just going through the motions, that's more like a gyata sukriti. We're doing something ignorantly, and okay, I can give an example of how that can work from the 11th canto. So in the 11th canto, Krishna says to Uddhava, you can make a fire by rubbing wood, and then there'll be a spark, and then you pour ghee, and then the fire blazes. So if we're just going through the motions without any emotion, then we're just rubbing wood, we're just, it's just hard work. And as I said, the problem is because we're pleasure-seeking beings, and because Prabhupada said we cannot continue to do something without some kind of flavor. If we don't get something related to bhakti rasa, we will look for something related to material rasa.
Right.
We are incapable as a living being. We are absolutely incapable of going on and on and on and on and on and on and on doing something unless we're experiencing some kind of rasa, some kind of flavor. Yes, we'll dry up finally. We'll turn to something else.
Okay.
Or we'll get, there's material perversions of disgust, anger, right? Fear. So the kind of rasa that could be motivating a person might be one of the secondary sthai. their primary staibhav is going to be some material identification. And we see this. We see devotees who don't work on having any kind of relationship with Krishna or any kind of affection for Krishna, either as God or as my master, that many times they start really getting into fear, anger, or disgust. I see this very commonly, that they're just always disgusted with the material world, or they're always angry at all the non-devotees, or they're, that those are rasas. And those are the things that are driving them. I mean, there's one devotee who I know who brags about how her main driver is anger. She's always bragging about it. The main thing that's driving me in all my service is all my anger. Unfortunately, she sometimes commits Vaishnava aparad in that way. So better as sadhakas, we have some kind of at least shanta or dasya in an immature form. It's not a fully developed staibhav, but again, and something personal. God is great. God is wonderful. And
So yeah,
something.
just kind of like a tangential. So those people that like for the Catholic Christian faith who have this traction or Jesus, they have a personal connection with Jesus. That's their whole thing, having a personal connection. Would that be like a Vishaya or
Well,
not
the
really?
problem is that they often see Jesus as God.
Uh-huh.
So if they're, we have two problems there, that if they think that Jesus is God instead of Jesus is Guru, and then they think that God has a material body, then they end up in a Mayavad
Mm,
situation.
okay. Okay.
Of course, many of them are innocent. I mean, they're not intentional offenders, they're just innocent. But in any religion, yes, in any religion, doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be the Gaudiya Sampradaya ISKCON branch. In any religion, if you're doing service for the Lord because you're motivated by his greatness, his wonder, his opulences, that's a common kind of shantaras, and you feel some kind of love
Okay.
for him. I love God, and this morning here we had such a beautiful sunrise. I love God who's the artist. It's got to be personal. To be shanta, it's got to be personal.
Yes.
I love God the artist. I love God the creator. I feel some love for God. I see the sunrise and I feel love for God the artist. Then your anubhavs are actually anubhavs with something connected with bhakti ras. But if that's not motivating it, you're going to have a whole different kind of rasa. You're going to try to, your vishaya is going to be different.
Mm.
And your whole concept of self is going to be different. And your ability to progress is going to be very, very slow. You will make some progress because you're having something to do with Krishna, and Krishna is very kind. So he even elevates demons who have something to do with him. So, Krishna is like super kind and super merciful. So even if you don't know what you're doing and you have the wrong mentality, but you do something for him, he's like, "Oh, you've done something for me." But that's not mature. That takes a long time to mature. Any other questions on Anubhav?
I have one more question. Sorry.
That's
Or
okay.
we can get
Not
right. No, so I'm also thinking about, we have, and I think maybe when the other question was answered, we have a really strong attachment to Srila Prabhupada.
yes, I hope.
And we get very emotional when we think about his compassion. I mean just to what he did for us. So that feeling of so Vijaya is Srila Prabhupada
That would
and
be that
his
would be that would be but Prabhupada would be acting on Bhakti Rasa as an Udipana unless we're aware of his relationship with Krishna, and we have the same one, which is not a topic I would talk about at all.
okay,
But
okay, okay, okay,
otherwise, he would act as an Udipana. Prabhupada, no,
okay.
Srila Prabhupada would not want to be our Vishaya.
Okay.
That, you know,
But okay, I get it now. Now
because
it
then we're
just clicked for
thinking
me.
of him as
He's
God.
right. He's not the okay. His relationship is not the issue here. I mean, his relation. If it was a Vishya, we'd have to know his relationship to Krishna, right?
Well, if he was Ashraya, we'd have to know his relationship to Krishna. And we'd
I'm
have to be
sorry.
in,
I'm sorry. If he was Ashraya, we'd have to know the relationship to Krishna. Yes, Vishya and then Ashraya.
and
Yes,
we'd have
okay.
to have a similar relationship ourselves.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I got it. Thank you.
Okay, this guru, so we have this question here, guru is in Udipana or Ashraya. That depends. If your guru, if you are in the mood of a cowherd boy and your guru is also in the mood of a cowherd boy, then your guru is Ashraya. If you're in the mood of a cowherd boy, your guru is in the mood of a gopi, your guru would be Udipana. If you don't yet know that, then in general, the guru and the devotees are going to be acting as Udipanas. Yes, Mahalakshmi. By the way, these are Bivaba questions, not Anubhava questions, but go ahead. Mahalakshmi, I can't
Yes,
hear you.
yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is something very rooted, I feel, at least around somewhere, that taking the spiritual master, we know he's not God, but is very much taken like that. And
Well,
of
that's a
course,
problem.
yes,
The only time Srila Prabhupada threw devotees out of the Hare Krishna movement is when
yes,
they were worshiping him as God. It's the only time that he said, throw them out. And
yes.
Prabhupada's reasoning was, if you think the guru's God, then you're thinking, oh, if I advance in bhakti, I'll become God.
Wow. So
Guru
I
is
feel,
not God. Guru is not God. Guru is not God. Guru is not God. We worship Guru like God because he's very dear to the Lord, because he represents the Lord, just exactly like if a police officer stops you, you give that, if you're sane, you respect the police officer as if he's the whole government.
yeah.
You know, right? You don't, the policeman is another human being like you. In one sense, you can say they're just another citizen like you, but they're not. That's the whole government standing in front of you. That
These
police
two,
officer has the force and the power and the authority of the whole government. So therefore, they're not an ordinary citizen. And like if you kill a police officer in pretty much every country in the world, so that's going to be a much more serious crime than if you kill an ordinary citizen. So Guru is like that. Therefore, we respect Guru as good as God. That doesn't mean the Guru is God.
I feel difficulty in finding devotees who want to talk or read about Krishna because it's too
Well, that's
elevated.
why we have this class here, so you can be
Yes,
with
that's
devotees.
why I come every
You want
time you
to-
give these classes.
So there you go. So,
Thank you.
so all right. Okay. Anubhava, voluntary expression to Lord, how to remember if mind drags to how to focusing on love for Krishna, do serve. How do we bring back our mind to Krishna? Though this starts with identity. It starts with a staibhav. It starts with an identity. So the identity is I have some affection for God, either as God the Great or God my Master. And Krishna tells us in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we're going to have to keep pulling our mind back. That's why it's called sadhana bhakti, or what is the other word? No, what's the word? It's escaping me. Anyway, can't think of it right now. Practice. We're practicing love. We're practicing love. We still have a strong material identity, and so we're abhyasa. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Abhyas yoga. Thank you very much. Ranga Rama, that's from Bhagavad Gita 12:9. So abhyas yoga or sadhana bhakti, because it's practice. It's practice. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when commenting on always remember Krishna and never forget him, says at least for some time every day. at least for some time every day. I may not be feeling that love while I'm polishing the silver, but at least I've spent my japa time, my Gayatri time, my hearing the Shastra time, my puja time, cultivating that relationship. I mean, look, in ordinary life, Prabhupada's saying that the family person has to have some rasa. So if you're cooking dinner for your family, you may not be feeling in that moment love for all your family. But it's love for your family that's motivating you to cook for them, even though you're not feeling it in that moment. In that moment, you're just concentrating, okay, I'm timing the rice and I've got to spice the vegetables. And so you're focused on what you're doing, but your drive for doing that is your love for your family and how much they're going to be pleased to come and eat with you. That's what's driving you on and on. That's your motivation. So even as sadhakas, if we're not feeling that connection at every moment, but we need to be cultivating that at least during our sadhana. At least when we're reading the Shastras, when we're worshiping the deity, when we're in kirtan, when we're chanting japa, when we're chanting Gayatri, at least at that time as much as possible, as much as we can. And then that will inform and color and fragrance everything that we're doing. But we should also be practicing. We should be practicing even while we're running around doing 1,000 things to remember for whom we're doing them. That should be part of our practice. Not that we should have an idea that, well, I'm just going to run around doing things and hope that my external bodily activities are going to lead me to enlightenment. It's both a mental anushilanam in the 16th, in the Eastern Ocean, rather. Anushilanam is explained as both mental and physical activities. So, we have to just keep dragging our mind back. I mean, it just is what it is, what it is. And okay, so right now I'm a sadhaka, I'm a practicing devotee. The last hour I haven't thought about Krishna. Okay, but I can think about Krishna right now. And how can I can think of Krishna as the taste in water. I can think about Krishna as my ability. I can think about Krishna as his garments are in the sunrise. Something. As much as possible to have that affection. Okay, I want to go on to Sattvika Bhav. So Sattvika Bhav is in relation to the primary and secondary sthai bhavs. It can be also indirectly related. It can come from an abhas of rati, and there's varieties of intensity. So these are all the categories that Srilupa Goswami discusses with Sattvika bhavs, how they're related to the primary and secondary sthai bhavs, how they can be indirectly related to the primary and secondary sthai bhavs, how they can come from an abhas of the sthai bhavs, and varieties of intensity. Okay, so at the definition of, why does this sometimes work? So when the heart becomes overwhelmed by one sthai bhav, either a direct sthai bhav or an indirect sthai bhav, there gets a state of what's called sattva in the heart, which produces the sthai bhav. The types of sattvika bhav, there's soft and moist, experienced by devotees related to their sthai bhav, either primary or secondary. Then there's digdha, experienced by devotees who have developed their sthai bhav with Krishna, but it's not directly related to Krishna. It becomes related to Krishna later. And here we have ruksha, experienced by people with an abhas of a sthai bhav. And the causes of them, so the heart becomes overwhelmed with a bhava related to Krishna. That's the state of sattva. The state of sattva offers itself to the prana of the body. The prana changes and disturbs the body, and the sattvika bhavs become visible. And here are the 8 sattvika bhavs: paralysis, perspiration, horripilation, choked voice, quivering, change of color, tears, or fainting. And they can increase in duration, pervasiveness, or exhibition of their essential nature. They can be smoky, a slight one that can be easily concealed, luminous, 2 or 3, concealed with difficulty, brilliant 3 to 5 that cannot be concealed, 5 or more that cannot be concealed, and supremely brilliant just for personalities like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srimati Radharani. And we have these can come, there can be a Ratiya bus. So this is the same as Ruksha Sattvika above. A Sattva above, these are false forms and semblances. They can be caused by soft emotions, someone who's just an actor, and caused by emotions in opposition to Krishna. So let's go back here. Anybody have any questions or discussions on the Sattvic above? Yes, Mahalakshmi.
In the previous slide, you mentioned about one who is, you refer to a drama, a person who is playing a drama?
And it's someone who's just pretending like an actor. So these are fakers. These are cheaters. They're
Oh.
pretending to have love for God, but they're just practicing crying so that they can get prestige or money or something like that.
In which category are those persons, or what can they?
That's a semblance. That's one of these semblances. So that's okay. So these are the semblances of sattvic bhavs. So one semblance is caused, the highest level of semblance is caused by someone who has an abhas of a sthai. So they're near a great devotee who has a genuine sthai. In their relationship, they feel an abhas of a sthai, which causes them to have sattvic bhavs. So this is the harsh, dried up form. Then you can have somebody that they're not having a Staibhav abhas, they're having a Sattva abhas. So their heart is not really softened with love, but their heart gets softened in some way. Maybe they're naturally a very soft-hearted person, or maybe hearing Krishna Gita, their heart becomes a little softened. So they have a Sattva abhas, and they may experience hair standing on end or crying. So here, this is a
I
cheater.
don't understand this one.
What don't you understand?
This one is Nisattva,
They're the cheater.
cheater.
They have no sattva. There's nothing. They don't even have an abhas.
Okay.
Sattva. There's
The
no
one who's
abhas.
pretending,
Yeah,
Just
pretending,
cheater.
right? The pretenders.
They're a
Common
cheater. They're a
cheater.
pretender. They have no feelings at all. They
They
don't
are
have
expecting something, but it's totally false. It's not Sattvika bhav.
totally false. They don't have an abhas of love, and they don't have an abhas of soft-heartedness. They don't have anything. They're just pretending that they have love of God for some other motive.
All right.
They
Got
have
it.
some other motive, I love Jesus. Oh, I love Jesus. Oh, send your donations here so I can buy my own jet. I actually saw that. I was in a hospital waiting room. I was taking a devotee for a procedure. It was a Sunday morning, like 6 in the morning, and evidently on Sunday morning television in the United States, there's these what they call televangelists. And they're cheaters. I'm not saying all of them are cheaters, but there's a lot of them that are cheaters. Maybe some of them are genuine. I don't know. I'm not in their heart, not God. But I saw some years ago, I saw a whole expose from John Oliver on these televangelists. It was a really interesting expose. How these guys buy $600 million jets. And they say, oh, I'm favored by Jesus because I can spend $600 million on a private plane. And I have to have a private plane because when I'm preparing my sermons, I can't be surrounded by materialistic people. They're going to disturb me. So that's why I have to have a private jet for $600 million. And then they're there, the way they're collecting money. And they're asking people, this guy was asking people, I don't remember how long we were in that waiting room, but it was long enough. He was asking people, he said, max out your credit cards. Take all your credit cards, get the maximum amount, send it all to me. And I will send you a blessed handkerchief to put under your pillow. It was bizarre. But they were showing this apparent sattvic above. They were, Jesus, he's so kind to me. I love Jesus, Jesus. It was all garbage. It was just pure garbage, and these people, mostly poor people, will get cheated by these rascals.
And the Pratipa would be people like Kamsa?
Yeah, so the demons, so they hate Krishna, but they're still experiencing some emotions in this material rasa, their material rasa of hatred towards Krishna. And they may have some symptoms. Their hairs may stand on end, they may shiver, they may cry, they may, because there are sattvic bhavas even in material rasa. Of course there are. Yes? People cry when they see sad movies. So there's a sattvic bhav even in material rasa. And so why is this mentioned here? Because it has some relationship to Krishna, so someone might think it's a sattvic bhav. If I'm watching a sad video about a puppy, no one's going to, and I'm crying and my hairs are standing on end, no one's going to think that's a bhakti rasa sattvic bhav. But if I'm fighting with Krishna, and in fighting with Krishna, I become paralyzed or my hair stand on end, you might say, oh, that demon's having a sattvic bhav. But it's even though it has something to do with Krishna, it is not so. Any other questions on sattvic bhavs?
Yeah, going back to the whole demons thing, can
Yeah,
you
okay.
kind of explain that? Because I mean, like for example, um uh the doorkeepers,
Okay,
Jaya and Vijaya.
that's a special case.
Okay,
Spe-
okay, okay, that helped. Okay, thank you then.
Die Vijay special case. But if you're talking about actual demons, actual demons. Now, of course, sometimes what happens, because Krishna's really kind. I mean, I can't fathom Krishna's kindness. I mean, I wouldn't be that kind. Right? If someone's trying to kill me, I would want them to go to hell for a long time. Right? At least to jail for a long time. Something. Someone's coming to kill me. I wouldn't be like, oh, let me purify you and you can come live with me. I don't know. I mean, this Krishna's mood toward the demons is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's so incredible. Oh, you're coming to me? Yeah, I'm coming to you to kill you. Oh, but you're coming to me? Yeah, but I'm coming to you to kill you. Oh, but you're coming to me? That's wonderful.
We never
Let, let
thought,
me
isn't
let
that
me let me chop off your head and remove the inimical nature you have and reveal my glories to you, and now you're in love with me. Boom. Yeah.
I'm thinking also, isn't that the innocence of a child? Like the
Well,
child loves the person.
Krishna is young. I like that. Krishna is young. He is young. Although he has the eternal wisdom. His mood is youthful. His mood is this kind of childlike youthfulness. Yes. Yeah, you could say that. I never thought of that before, but that's so sweet. Yes, because Krishna's very young, that he has this. Oh, you have something to do
Because
with me. I think
because
it's
if you think of
also that Krishna loves all his parts and parcels, and he
hmm,
knows that once we're in Maya, it's really hard to get out of it. Mama Maya Duratiya. And so he's not going to mess around with karma. Like he's just not going to mess around with karma. That's in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. But he'll find workarounds because he really wants to bring us home. So he finds some kind of workaround. And it's like, okay, I haven't messed with karma, folks. I haven't messed with karma. But the person had something to do with me. Okay, they had something to do with me. So it's cool. I've kept my neutrality. I haven't messed with karma, but I still give an opportunity because Krishna he wants us home, you know? I think it's something like if you're a parent of adult children, that even if your children only call you when they want something, you're still kind of happy that they called you. And one of my adult grandchildren did that. See, he didn't communicate with me for like over a year. And then he contacts me because he wanted money. And it was going to be his birthday. And I usually send birthday presents to my kids and grandkids. And so he wanted me to send him a birthday present. He particularly wanted me to send him money. Uh, so I did. And then again, he didn't contact me for like a year. So the next birthday, I just sent him a card. I didn't send him any present at all, just a card. Like if you're only going to contact me for money, you know? But I did send him a card. And I was happy that at least he contacted me, you know, it counted for something. And then he started contacting me more. After I only gave him a card, he started contacting me more. So the next birthday, I bought him a present. Oh, Krishna. So, I mean, I think if we can be like that, certainly Krishna can be like that. But Krishna's mercy is so much more extreme than I think anything that you would find in an ordinary jiva like me. I mean, you will find great devotees who have that kind of mercy towards the non-devotees, like Vasudev Datta. So you will find elevated prema bhaktas who kind of personify this extreme mercy of the Lord. And of course, Lord Nityananda, who's taking the role of a devotee, is certainly like that. Yes, Nardarishi, and then we're going to take a break.
Yes, Hare Krishna. When Krishna is killing the demons, is they return to their basic connection to their Stai Baba?
Some of them do. Some of them just merge into the Brahma Jyoti, which, from there, they're probably going to fall back down to the material world. They can go from there to Vaikuntha, though. Some of them go to an intermediate position of Shanta Bhav. It depends. Depends on the mentality of the particular demon.
We hear often, like when Krishna fights with a demon, he has some pleasure in the actual,
Of course.
pancha.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So that's a great service in a way that
Right, but so therefore Krishna accepts that as a service. See, that's Krishna's far outness.
well, I think if I
He
was in the
accepts it as a
spiritual world,
service, but Srila Rupa Goswami explains in the beginning of Nectar Devotion that even though the demons like Kamsa are giving pleasure to Krishna in fighting, it's still not counted as service because their mood is not to please him. Whereas when Mother Yasoda makes Krishna angry by leaving him to attend the milk, she's not pleasing him. He's angry at her. He's actually angry at her. It's counted as devotional service because she's doing it to please him and to serve him.
but isn't it Krishna making the whole arrangement so that he can have some fun
Oh,
matching
this
up
is this so way beyond me, my dear. This you'll have to talk to Krishna directly about this sort of thing. But this is in the category where Prabhupada told Aikayani, better you chant Hare Krishna, go to the spiritual world and see this for yourself. How Krishna is arranging things and then there's always backstories, when you're looking at someone in this material world, there's backstories of their previous lifetimes
we might not know.
and what's going on in their consciousness or who else is praying for them. And we don't know all of that stuff. We don't see all that stuff. I mean, I've read some extraordinary, true contemporary stories about people who became super spiritual and religious from a position. One of them who was a angry atheist, and one of them who was a super heavy duty criminal. And each of them became very God conscious persons because of other people's prayers for them. So there were other people who were genuinely spiritual that were praying for them for many, many years, every single day. And in each of those cases, they were shown extraordinary mercy, although they didn't do anything. In fact, they were the opposite of doing anything. So, you know, we may not see that. We may not see that. Why did, I mean, in one of those stories, you can read the book, it's called My Descent into Death. And it was this heavy duty atheist. I mean, really heavy. Like he was opposed to religious people. And he ended up having what we call a near-death experience, where he left his body. He was he was American. He was a professor in America, and he left his body in a hospital in France. And he was being carried away by demons to hell. I mean, literally, they were carrying him away to hell. And then he heard a voice in his subtle body. He heard a voice say, "Pray." And he was thinking, I don't even believe in God. I've never prayed. I don't know any prayers. And then he just started singing a patriotic American song. He started singing, "God bless America." And as soon as he said that, the demons that were carrying him, they backed off. They were carrying him to hell, and they were torturing him in various ways, and they backed off. And they started taunting him. "Don't say anything like that. There's no God." But they backed off. And then he just thought, "Oh my goodness, do I know any other songs with God in it?" And he just started saying whatever he knew that had the word God in it. And eventually the demons all ran away. And he ended up getting some kind of, he ended up hearing the voice of the Lord, and he ended up seeing at least some of his effulgence and glory. I mean, it was an incredible experience. And then he comes back into his body, gradually gets better, and then he's a changed person. And instead of just being an art professor, he becomes a minister. After that, he could see the demigods and the angels. Like he'd go into a church when people were singing, and he could see the ceiling was full of celestial beings singing along with everyone else. And he was having a lot of sattvic kebabs as well. And he started just preaching, the glories of God, the wonder, the love. And at one of his lectures, this one woman comes up to him afterwards, and she said, "When you were an art professor," she said, "I was already a nun in a convent." She was still a nun. She said, "And I wanted to take some art classes. The convent paid for me to take art classes from you at the university. And you told me that I wasn't allowed to draw any religious pictures because you didn't want anything religious in your class." She said, "So I went back to the convent and I told the other sisters that we needed to pray for you." She said, "So for the last 13 years, you've been included in the prayers of all the sisters in the convent." Now, he didn't even know that. He didn't even know that anybody was praying for him, but this whole convent was praying for him every day for 13 years. And from that, he got, thank you. Oh, more. Just kiss. Thank you. From that, he got this mercy. So, I mean, another story I read, I can't remember where I read it, so I can't refer you back to it. It was this guy who was a really hardened criminal, like super heavy duty criminal, and he was in prison. Not only was he in prison, but in prison, he was getting into fights and stuff, so they kept putting him into solitary confinement. So his mother had died when he was young, but his father was very religious, and his father was every day praying for him. And he knew that. I mean, he knew his father was praying for him. And but every day his father would pray for him, and his father would say, "Someday, someday I hope that you'll come to God." And then his father died while he was in prison. And one day in solitary confinement, he heard a voice just saying, "If you were to take the same energy you use for evil and use it for good, then you could do much good for the world. And he just changed. And he became very deeply religious. And he ended up getting released from prison on parole eventually, and again becoming a preacher. And he personally, because he knew his father had been praying for him, he attributed that entirely to his father's prayers for him. But my point is, when we're seeing Krishna fighting with a demon, and they get various types of liberation, maybe they merge into the Brahmajyoti, maybe they go to a Vaikuntha planet and get Swarupya Mukti, maybe they become reinstated in their Staibhav like Putana did. So we don't necessarily know. Sometimes our acharyas will tell us. Sometimes our acharyas will say, oh, this demon was so-and-so in the past life, or this demon had this thing, or this demon had this thing. Sometimes they don't tell us. And there's something else going on there that Krishna is arranging that we can't see. Okay, we have a question. Does Krishna love us more than we can love him? Of course. Okay, so we're going to take a break. Let's take a break till, let's see. Let's take a 10-minute break. So it's now 8:07. So we'll come back at 8:17 my time, which would be in London, 1:17. I always have problems with India because you're on this half thing. With in India, 6:47, in Malaysia, 9:17. See you again in 10 minutes. Please take a real break. Hare Krishna. So now we're looking at the Vyavichari Bhavs. So Srila Rupa Goswami looks at the varieties of Vyavichari Bhavs, the various causes in relationship to the primary and secondary Sthai Bhavs, the stages of Vyavichari Bhavs, and the strength of the Vyavichari Bhavs. So here we have the basic connection. The Sthai Bhav mixes with the Vyavichari Bhavs to form Sattva, to form the Anubhavas and the Sattvika Bhavas. So this is the steady emotions, and this is the changing emotions which produce Sattva. So the emotions are not exactly voluntary or involuntary, but they're the cause of the voluntary and involuntary external actions. So some of the words used to describe Vyavichari Bhavs may sound like Sattvika Bhavs, some of them may sound like Anubhavs, because sometimes it's difficult to separate that out. So here's the list of the 33 Vyavichari Bhavs. And if you read the Rasalila chapters in Krishna book, you'll find most of these are there. And one Vyavichari Bhav can have other emotions included with it. Of course, this is true for material emotions as well. So if a person's angry, underneath the anger may be fear or insecurity or self-depreciation, right? So many things that are kind of underneath. That we have Vyavichari Bhavs dependent on Rati. So this is, it comes from the person's Rati and nourishes it. And that can be coming from a primary Sthai Bhav or a secondary Sthai Bhav. Then we have not born of Rati nor nourishing it. The example is Arjuna's fear in seeing the universal form. It doesn't come from his friendship. It doesn't nourish his friendship, but he has friendship. Then independent of Rati, that later touches Rati. So we have the example of Yasoda, who gets scared from her dream of Putana and then thinks of Krishna. With the fragrance of Rati, we have the example of Srimati Radharani, who's embarrassed that her elders are seeing a necklace that Krishna gave her. So there's some of her conjugal mood for Krishna, some fragrance of it is affecting it. And then those who just have a semblance of Rati, they have some abhas of Rati. This could be, of course, for those who are not yet fully developed in their Rati. Okay, we have some semblance. So in persons hostile to Krishna. So again, this is the demons. And inappropriate. So if some elevated devotee thinks that a chair or a tree or a deer is feeling things that they're not actually feeling, then the conditions and stages. So
I didn't
there's a
understand
beginning.
that last category.
I
Inappropriate.
think you were not here for the two Vyavichari Bhavs. I think those were the two you missed when you were traveling. Am I correct?
Yes, you are
Mahalakshmi,
correct.
Mahalakshmi, you were traveling and you missed two classes. I think you missed the two Vyavichari Bhav classes.
Hmm. Okay.
Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. What you might want to do is go online. You can look at my old ones. And these I think also will get online. I think Narada Rishi has arranged with the devotees that these will get online. So I suggest you review that there. Okay.
Mhm.
I think it's in the second class about Vyavichari Bhavs. So the condition and the stages. So there's a time when it begins and a time when it ends, because these are not stai-bhavs. They're moving. The stai-bhav is always there. So there's a time when it begins and there's a time when it ends. Then you can have two or more Vyavichari Bhavs together. And you can have two or more Vyavichari Bhavs coming together from the same source or from different sources. Then you can have, and these are true for material emotions as well, you can also have one Vyavichari Bhav which starts getting taken over by another one. So one comes in and one goes out. So they're kind of both together for a while, but like that. And then another one comes in, and you can have a whole bunch of them. And sometimes they can be in conflict, and this can be from one cause or from various causes. And then Srila Goswami summarizes, he says, the various emotions. You have your main stai-bhav, secondary stai-bhavs, the 33 Vyavichari bhavs, give you 41 variety. And of course, those combine in different ways to produce all sorts of infinite varieties. And here we're looking at the dominant primary stai-bhav. Some people have a mixture of stai-bhavs, but always one is dominant. They're interacting with the secondary stai-bhavs and the Vyavichari bhavs, stimulated by the vibhavas and producing anubhavs and sattvika bhavs. Srila Goswami gives this allegory that the swabhava, the innate bhavas, the stai-bhav, they're like the Indian matter that's red through and through and through. It's what it is. It's red. So your stai-bhav is like what you are. And the induced bhavas, that's like you're dyeing a cloth. Of course, it's not exactly the same because it's a temporary dye, but the idea is that the Vyavichari bhavas are not permanently who you are, but they're affecting you. Then he talks about whether or not we can perceive someone else's Vyavichari bhavas. How can we're looking at a great devotee, can we perceive what they're thinking and feeling? But generally they cannot be perceived because the devotees is mixed. So they don't have much external, there's not much anubhav or sattvika bhav happening. And he gives these three categories that they're heavy, deep, or expansive, and therefore the emotions can't move them very much. Therefore, it's not so much visible to others. So the situation where others are able to perceive is where the person's heart is light, superficial, or small. Then the Vyavichari bhavs can have a huge effect, and it's very visible to others. Okay. Any questions on the Vyavichari bhavs? Questions or discussion on the Vyavichari bhavs? Yes, Nardarishi.
Hare Krishna. So the Vyabhichari Bhavas are transient, so they come and go, they don't last. And the secondary stai Bhavas is the ones that leave a lasting impression. Yeah,
Impression. They also come and go, but they leave a lasting impression.
so what is it? That lasting impression as a difference from the Vyabhichari Bhava is because something might return and just stimulate that kind of tendency that is there? Could you explain
Well,
a little bit?
it's part of, like we were talking about, some devotees who have a very prominent secondary staibhav, like Madhumango with laughter, or Bijma with chivalry, or Sudama with chivalry. So there's always some of that there in their primary staibhav. Whereas with the Vyavichari bhavs, that's not the case. So with the Vyavichari bhavs, so there's not always some of that there.
So they might never come back. There might be a one-off thing that happens.
Never is, it's not like that. We're talking about spirituality. So it's not a question of never, but
No, yeah.
there's not always an impression there. I mean, we're talking in terms of time, which again, we're starting to have a problem.
Yeah.
But it's not that the gopis are, they may feel disappointment sometimes, but then it's completely gone. And they're no longer feeling any disappointment, and they even forget that they've ever felt disappointment. That's when we look at here, satisfaction when a disturbing emotion is resolved. And it's just satisfied and you forget. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Gopakumar says that in the spiritual world, in the Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna does go and come from Mathura. But once he's back, you forget that he's ever gone. It's just forgotten, whereas the secondary staibhavs always have something there. It's always part of the relationship. Okay. Now we're going to go to staibhav. I don't know why I put interesting. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the staibhavs. So there are primary and secondary staibhavs, pure and mixed. This mixed doesn't mean impure. It just means a person can have one dominant staibhav, or they can have one dominant with another primary staibhav mixed in with it. Like Nakul and Sahadev are in friendship, but they also have some servitude mixed in with that. You can have rasa from the rati in primary, and you can have a rasa from the rati in secondary. Each staibhav has different colors and deities, and then the staibhavs ultimately lead to taste. So the primary are neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental, conjugal. The secondary, humor, chivalry, wonder, anger, fear, disgust, and compassion or lamentation. And each of these can either be self-nourishing or other-nourishing. So each of these primary staibhavs, they can be nourished by the other four bhavas, or they can nourish the other four bhavas. And this is true with the 7 secondary staibhavas too. They can be nourished by the secondary staibhavas or be nourishing them. And Srila Rupa Goswami talks about 3 types of neutral staibhavs. Samanya, which is general, which it's very common. So this is the general love of God that you'll find in the world. It's very common for people. It's common for people in general. This is not something rare. And as sadhakas, we can access this. We can access this as our impetus. Swacha is transparent. This is a higher level, not as common, but this is an intermediate step. It's not a final step. It doesn't lead to ultimate rasa, where a person can enjoy something from each of the 5 primary staibhavs. They're kind of moving between them. Whatever they meditate on, they're enjoying that. So this is an elevated state of love and purity, but it's not a final thing that can lead to rasa. And then shanfa, this peaceful staibhav, this can develop into rasa. And this is there's just wanting to see the Lord, wanting to be with the Lord. And in each of these 3, okay, so we should say that with none of these 3, there's no mamata, there's no sense of my, there's not even a sense of really my Lord. I mean, a person may speak like that, may say my Lord, but there's not a sense of my Lord. There's a sense that I am the Lord's, rather than that the Lord is mine. So then three other primary staibhavs, which have mamata, the sense of possessiveness, and deep friendliness, are servitorship, parental, and friendship. You can have one staibhav by itself, or it can be mixed with other staibhavs, like you can mix servitorship and friendship. You can mix neutrality and servitorship. You can move conjugal and servitorship, etc. Then there's madhurya, which is based on mutual enjoyment. And this is between women and Krishna. There's an emotional state of being his lover. And we have the greatest sense of possessiveness and the greatest sense of friendliness. And we had a whole long discussion on this, that you can say that there's a progressively superior taste from neutrality to conjugal, but each devotee has their own staibhav, which for them is the best. And we talked about this based on vasana, on one's own desire, on one's own inclination, which is eternal. Stai means it's eternal. It's not created. It's part of the living being. Then the secondary staibhavs, so these act similar to rati. They're also stimulated by vibhava, alambana, vishaya. And the primary rati withdraws and subdues itself. It subdues itself and goes in the background, and these manifest. So Krishna is the direct cause in these six. Krishna is not the direct cause of disgust. Two varieties of anger, also Krishna is not the direct cause. He's not the Vishaya. These are the 7 secondary basic relationships. So there's chivalry is between the cowherd boys, but there's also chivalry sometimes in sportive games between Krishna and the gopis. In Dwarka, you'll see it in playing chess. It may also be present even in Vaikuntha, in wrestling to please the Lord of Vaikuntha. And chivalry includes being dharmic and kind, also to please the Lord. You might even have some chivalry in parental. I mean, sometimes parents play sporting games with their kids too. So that might also be there. Giving charity to please Krishna is also a kind of chivalry that's there in parental. So with the secondary staibhavs, the vibhavas, anubhavs, sattvic vibhavas, brahmachari bhavs, all nourish the secondary staibhavs. Primary staibhavs go to the background and become nourishing. Then the secondary staibhavs produce taste. Now, we then look at rasa. So we just want to note that Srila Prabhupada generally just uses the word rasa. He doesn't usually use the word staibhav or rati. So staibhav is used when rasa is not experienced, and rasa is when everything is fully experienced. Any questions or discussions on staibhav? Yes, Nardarishi.
Hare Krishna. When we talk about the 9 angas of bhakti, there is servitorship and friendship, but this is
Excellent.
unrelated to
This
staibhav.
is it's unrelated to the staibhav. Yes. I have a presentation I give on friendship, and I talk about friendship as sadhana for sadhakas for everyone, and then friendship as a staibhav, as a rasa. So the feeling of friendship for a sadhaka that's not related to staibhav is both Krishna is my friend, he's my well-wisher. He cares about me, and I can be Krishna's friend. I can care about him. I can be his well-wisher. I can try to make him happy. I can try to make him comfortable. So I trust Krishna as my friend, and Krishna can trust me as his friend. And that any sadhaka can cultivate that. Yes. And the same thing with servitorship. As I was saying, generally for sadhakas, when we haven't realized our eternal saibhav, we can be in neutrality or servitorship, but also friendship. You can also have a feeling Krishna is my best friend, Suridam Sarvabhutanam. And I want to be his friend. I want to care about him. I want to care about. And that might not be your eternal staibhav. But as a sadhaka, yes, that is a practice that one can cultivate. And that's different. But it's you could say that it's a working, you could say neutrality, servitorship, friendship. They're kind of a working, functional practice Vaibhav so that we can start experiencing some genuine rasa before we've realized our eternal Vaibhav. Because as I keep saying over and over again, you can't work without rasa. Prabhupada says that. Without rasa, you're going to stop working. You're not going to be able to go on. You're not going to be able to be steady in your service. So if we don't have some kind of sambandha with Krishna, some kind of sense of a relationship with Krishna, then we're not going to get pleasure from our service. And if we're not, or we're going to get a material pleasure from our service and think that it's spiritual. Excellent, excellent question. Any other question about Sai Bobs? Yes, Paneshwar Lakshmi.
So I was just thinking, so that's why it's really, really important for us to find something in our Krishna, a service in Krishna consciousness that we really enjoy doing, and not
Yes,
just doing service for the sake of doing service. And you have to
please,
do it because you have to
please.
do it because that's devotional service. And we make people or make our kids do things because they're
Oh,
supposed
goodness.
to do it.
Oh,
And
goodness. I mean, we all have to do a little bit of that in life.
yes.
I mean, that just, you know, I have a very small room that I live in, and I have a little mini portable washing machine and very little space to hang up clothes, which means I have to do laundry every 1 or 2 days. And I wish I had demigod clothes that didn't need to be washed. The demigod's clothes never get dirty or soiled. That would be lovely if I never had to do laundry. So, you know, that's something I do because I enjoy having clean clothes, but I don't particularly enjoy doing laundry. I don't like having other people do my laundry because then they mess up my clothes. So. But it's a part of life I don't particularly like relish. I wouldn't want to become a Dobi Walla. In India, they're the laundry guys. That's what they do as their job. I'd never want to become a Dobi Walla. No way. That would be awful. I would hate that. But my point is, some things there's part of life that is not like, wow, I get to wash my clothes. So there may be some services like that, but it shouldn't be the main thing that we're doing. All of us are going to have to do something for our bodily care, something for our friends and family, something for the Lord here and there that may not be. But as far as our primary service, yes, of course, we should try to relish even those other things somehow or other. I mean, at least I try to be grateful. Like, I'm grateful I have enough clothes that I can both wash some and wear some at the same time. Some people in the world only have one set of clothes. They have to just put on a gumshoe while they're washing their clothes and wait for it to dry. I mean, there are people who only have one set of clothes. I'm grateful I have a washing machine that I don't have to wash my clothes in a bucket. I'm grateful I have a place to hang them up in my room and that they dry quickly in my room. I'm grateful I have the physical ability to do laundry. I'm grateful I have clean water to do laundry. So at least I can be grateful and have some connection with Krishna. So even in the services we don't enjoy, at least we can have some gratitude, we can have some connection to Krishna. But primarily, we should be doing services that give us some kind of taste. And we should try to do services that help us to think of Krishna, not just services that we enjoy on a false ego level. And it was some decades ago, I was at a meeting and one devotee said, I forget which the discussion in the group went in some direction. And the devotee said, if we're going to go in this direction, we're all going to forget about the blue boy playing his flute. And I thought, wow, yeah, we're supposed to remember the blue boy playing his flute. So I see that there's some kind of service where I'm good at it and I like it, but it tends to pull me away from Krishna consciousness. I have found services like that where I'll get wrapped up in another kind of consciousness. And so there's services that I've let go of and I enjoyed them externally, materially, and I was good at them, but they weren't good for my Krishna consciousness. That doesn't mean they weren't good for somebody else's Krishna consciousness, but they weren't good for my Krishna consciousness. And which is why Srila Rupa Goswami has this whole section at the end of the Northern Ocean about compatible and incompatible activities. Because something that's compatible for my remembering Krishna may not be compatible for you remembering Krishna. And vice versa. There are some speakers that I don't find spiritually enlivening, and other people do, but I don't. There are definitely certain devotional activities that I find enlivening and other people don't. That I enlivening in terms of I remember Krishna, I feel close to Krishna, I feel close to the person Krishna. So there are some that make me feel closer to Krishna, and they don't make other people feel closer to Krishna. And some people that some activities make other people feel closer to Krishna, but they don't do that for me. Like they'll say, "Oh, wow, I feel so connected to Krishna when I'm doing this," and I think, "Oh, wow, I'm going to try that," and I try it, and I'm like, doesn't do that for me." So therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami explains this, and Prabhupada talks about this, of course, as well. What's compatible and what's incompatible, and that's going to be different for each of us as individuals, and as we progress in bhakti, that will also shift. So what may really help me to remember Krishna and feel affection for Krishna at one stage in my Krishna consciousness might not have that effect at a later stage. Any other questions on Staibhav? Okay, we're going to go now to a discussion of rasa. So this is, of course, the last class that we just have, so this should be very fresh in everyone's mind. Okay, here we have just something in the chat. Senior devotees say you have to do this service that will not be much involved, but they compel us. That's charity in Rajagun, my dear. Charity is not just money, charity is time, charity is energy. If one gives charity out of compulsion from a superior, that is charity in Rajagun. So please try to put yourself in situations where that's not going to happen. Again, if it's short, very short, temporary, brief things, that's fine. But we're talking about long, ongoing things. All of us have to do some things that we don't like. Is just part of life. It just is. But even then, we should try to be connected with Krishna. But it's very important that we perform service according to our taste, and that nourish us in devotional service. So that's extremely important. Okay, rasa and its components. So we could say first, these have distinct forms as the 5 parts of rasa. However, even when they combine for the advanced devotees, they're still recognizable in a subtle form, although there's no more cause and effect. So for those in prema, they're experiencing rasa combinedly. They can still tell the 5 parts in their subtle form. For those at bhava, they're experiencing each of these 5 bhavas separately. Okay, we had the whole discussion about poetry and drama. Poetry, again, refers to Shastra. Bhagavatam is poetry. Bhagavatam is poetry. So in ordinary stories, in ordinary dramas, the characters are ordinary, the actors are just doing a job. Whatever rasa is there is in the hearer. In transcendent Krishna Katha, the personalities are divine. The divine personalities can enter into the person giving class, or they can enter into the actor. And so those who are hearing Krishna Katha or those who are watching Krishna Katha can experience rasa. And this is a very, very important point, because Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Prabhupada say that the main way we're going to discover our Staibhav is what really moves us when we're hearing Krishna Katha. And the main way that we develop is by hearing. Prabhupada says so many times that hearing is the most important of the 9 processes of devotion. It's the basis of everything else. It's what's going to bring out our emotions for Krishna. So Prabhupada makes the point that we are getting some hints. As sadhakas, we are getting some hints that until we are fully enlivened by the pleasure potency of the Lord, we're not going to fully understand these. And Prabhupada's saying that the pleasure potency of Krishna is compared to the ocean. The pure devotee is the pleasure-possessing cloud when he's filled with transcendental loving service that he can bestow his mercy as a downpour of rain. And the pleasure potency returns to the ocean of Krishna. So we can become enlivened with the pleasure potency by the mercy of a devotee. And then this discussion that each of the primary and secondary sthai bhavs has a color according to Bharat Muni and a presiding deity. And here Sri Rupa Goswami is giving different avatars. Then Sri Rupa Goswami talks about some of the secondary sthai bhavs that may appear not pleasurable. And he says it may appear distressing, but the devotee is actually experiencing bliss. And he talks about fear, disgust, and lamentation may not appear pleasurable. And here is Srimati Radharani lamenting in separation. And we see, oh, she's suffering, but actually they're not suffering. And he talks about that those who experience rasa, those who are in prema, those who are experiencing bhava, the ingredients of rasa, those not yet at bhava, who get some glimpses, some tastes, some hints, they can understand philosophically. Those who are just mistaken, they think they understand rasa, but they don't, the false renunciates, and those who are just into religious rituals who don't know anything about rasa. They don't even, these people think they know and they don't know. These people don't know and they don't know that they don't know. So experiencing bhakti rasa, first we have to have a relationship with Krishna. This happens through sadhana, mainly kirtan, and deep absorption in the Bhagavatam. When it becomes bhava, the sthai bhav is sufficiently real to produce the bliss of bhakti rasa, which is tasted fully and easily at prema and slightly at bhava. And in sadhana, we get only glimmers and reflections of it as the sadhana becomes pure. Any questions or discussions on rasa? Yes, Sarvani and Sri Vasudha.
Maji, we were just wondering about the presiding deities for the specific one. So are we like supposed to like focus on the specific deities and pray to them, or aren't we supposed to be focusing on Krishna? Like why?
Well, I really don't know why Srila Rupa Goswami has included this. I think he's included it simply because Bharat Muni includes such things. And so he's being thorough and Krishnaizing everything. That's my educated guess. It doesn't seem to be something that any of our acharyas spend any time or effort or energy discussing or expanding at all. It simply seems to be something that he states and then moves on. So I see this as, I may be wrong, but I see this as just simply following Bharat Muni's example that there's colors and deities for each of the rasas. But again, I could be mistaken about it. Ganeshwara Lakshmi?
So, a frame of practical question. So, as somebody who has just taken this complete course, so now what do I do with it? So, what I'm thinking, and please correct me, is okay, so now I know all this. I mean, I don't know all this, but I have been made aware of all this. They've kind of just kind of,
Okay.
so now I myself as a sadhaka, now I am now more aware of when I am chanting, I need to really chant what, like Srila Prabhupada says, all these times we hear these terms, develop your relationship with Krishna, think of Krishna, and all these different things that we have learned throughout our lives as devotees, that people, now we're like, okay, now we really need to do what they're telling us to do. Now we focus on Krishna. When we're reading the Bhagavatam, they said you have to read the Bhagavatam because I'm reading the Bhagavatam, but now I need to actually understand the purpose of the Bhagavatam and read it as when Srila Prabhupada says scrutinizingly, he's not so much saying intellectually, but more like just read it and see what he reveals. I mean, enjoy it in a sense. I mean, like I said, relish it. This word of relishing the Bhagavatam, I kind of suddenly understand that it means don't just swallow everything that's been fed to you or read the Bhagavatam like you're stuffing yourself, but actually take, what they say, you touch it, you smell it, you feel it. When food to digest, they tell you that you need to first it has to be attractive, and then you feel it, and then you taste it and smell, and you start chewing it. And when you're chewing it, you think about, ooh, that tastes kind of good. Ooh, that's kind of, and I mean, I don't know, just these different
And
thoughts
then it
coming to
becomes
me.
rasa. Ayurvedically,
Right, right.
your food has to become rasa.
And so
It
that's
has
what
to
we need to do
become
now.
rasa. Yes, in
That's
order to have the final result of that is ojas and tejas.
right.
You could think of that kind of like an anubhav and a sattvikabhav. The
Mm.
tejas is your physical power, and your ojas is kind of your glow. So you could think of the tejas as like your anubhav and the ojas as like your sattvikabhav. You're only going to get ojas and tejas if your food turns into rasa.
And that's only if you chew it properly, taste it properly.
It's so many things.
Yeah.
Combination, how you combine tastes. If you combine the taste wrongly, if you put your sweet rice on top of your bitter melon, you're going to get a ras abas. If it's ever happened to you at a feast, it's happened to
Yes.
me. You're just taking your plate down the line, and they forget they're serving a person. They think they're serving a plate, you know, and you have your fried gorilla there, and they just plop the glubjamin with the glubjamin juice on top of your fried Corella. And then you can't enjoy either the glubjamin or the Corella. You get an abas. And yeah, when eating, we're supposed to be eating, meditating on Krishna's tasted this food, and these are the qualities of Krishna in this food. And Krishna's the fire of digestion, and Krishna's forming with the air of life. And Krishna's the fragrance of the earth that's permeating the food. And this food is a transformation of the air and the sunshine and the moonshine that gives the juice to the vegetables, and the taste of water in the food and the fragrance of the earth. We're supposed to be eating like that. As I went to a class where Radhanath Swami was saying we shouldn't eat prasadam, we should honor prasadam, we should serve prasadam when we're eating it. It should be a service. And when you eat meditatively, you will grow in Krishna consciousness, and you'll grow in health as well. So, pibantiye bhagavata atmana satam. One is supposed to drink the Bhagavatam. Yes. Prema Prakash Haridas Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandot Pranam Mataji. I'm describing your situation, and I would request your analysis on this. A
Okay.
devotee is preaching, and while describing the pastimes of the Lord and explaining while preaching, he suddenly feels the voice choked up, can't speak anything, starts perspiring, and takes couple of minutes before he comes to his balance and continues preaching, and at the same time feels an accelerated emotions in himself. What this should be considered?
Well,
It
that
happens
depends on,
at the pinnacle of the description when one is doing.
so it comes when?
While preaching and while explaining the pastimes and describing the pastimes of the Lord, a situation suddenly arises where the glorification of the Lord is going on,
Yeah,
and
but the last
suddenly,
thing you said, the last thing you said,
sorry,
does it happen in just certain instances or in any instance of preaching?
uh, in sometimes in instances of preaching only.
Okay. So that depends on where the devotee is in their understanding. So if this is a devotee who has not yet realized their staibhav, then they're experiencing some, unless they're a cheater, let's assume they're not a cheater, okay? We'll assume that they're a genuine devotee and not a cheater. So then they're probably experiencing some abas, a rati abas, or a sattva abas. So they're either have some shadow or reflection of a staibhav or shadow or reflection of sattva in the heart, not sattva gun. Now, let's say that a person has actually realized their staibhav to some extent, as Prabhupada would say. Then they're experiencing genuine sattvic bhavs that are not fully realized. Generally, in that state, they're going to be in one of the two. I'll have to go all the way back to this. So generally in that state, they're going to be either in smoky or luminous that can be concealed. Now, if a person's very advanced, they may get to the point that it cannot be concealed. But even this is concealed with difficulty. Generally, the devotees try to conceal their sattvic bhavs so that so they don't encourage the pretenders.
The
And that
the
they're
it cannot be really concealed, and it
Yeah,
becomes obvious to
once it
yeah,
gets to that point. Now, sometimes Krishna may arrange that a person cannot conceal their sattvic bhavs because Krishna wants to glorify this devotee. That may happen, but generally one should try to conceal. And with the smoky, it can be concealed, or this one, smoky or luminous. The way it's concealed, unfortunately, what Rupa Goswami says is you turn away from the rati. So you're feeling this your staibhav, and you're starting to have sattvic bhavs that are difficult to conceal, but you're in a situation where you want to conceal them. Then you turn your awareness away from the staibhav in order to conceal them for the purpose of service. But yeah, sometimes they can't be concealed, and if it's a genuine devotee, that does happen. I think I mentioned I was at a Rath Yatra where I saw one sannyasi who became fully stunned, fully paralyzed. He couldn't move. He became like a rod. His whole body, he was leading the kirtan in the Rath Yatra, and his whole body became like a rod, like 10, 15 minutes. They actually like stopped the Rath Yatra, just stayed at that point because he couldn't walk. And someone else continued the kirtan while people like kind of held him until he regained himself. Later, I said something to him about it, and he kind of just he acted like it was nothing, but that can happen. If a devotee's in a situation, in a public situation where they find they often cannot conceal their sattvic bhavs, they should probably be very careful what they talk about in public, because Srila Prabhupada wasn't so keen on this because it encourages fakers. So if a person finds, like we find Sukadeva Goswami never mentions the name of Srimati Radharani, and our acharyas say that's because that if he did, he wouldn't have been able to speak the Bhagavatam. So if a person finds that certain subject matter tend to provoke sattvic bhavs that can't be concealed, then probably in their preaching they should avoid that subject matter. Generally, unless there was some small group of people that's not on being recorded on the internet or something. Is that all right?
yes, Mataji. The devotee that I know is not a faker, is genuine. He has undergone several courses of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu previously also.
Anyway, we like to follow. I mean, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when the devotees came from Bengal, he would really limit his external ecstasies. He would stay mostly in external consciousness. Mahaprabhu had three types of consciousness: external, mixed, external, internal, and internal. When he was in internal, he was distributing so many of these sattvic bhavas, and very extraordinary ones that are never going to be experienced by jivas. And when he was in mixed internal, external, he was also displaying this. And when the devotees came from Bengal, he was staying mostly in external consciousness. And then the last few years of his manifest pastimes, he was mostly only in deep internal consciousness in the evening and around his intimate associates. So devotees should be a little careful about such things. Okay, so I want to wrap up
Thank you,
here.
Mataji.
So these were the aims of the course. If you can just take a look and see, do you feel that you accomplished some of these aims? To relish the mellow of devotional service to Sri Krishna during our preparation time, class time, and reflection time, bringing those realizations into our daily life, to be able to appreciate, meditate upon, and explain the 5 components of rasa. I hope you can all do that. To bring the members of a society together with each other and nearer to Krishna, the prime entity. And that's one of the purposes of ISKCON. And then the last one, which I've modified the first purpose of ISKCON, to systematically understand spiritual knowledge and the techniques of spiritual life as taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Rupa Goswami. So we've been looking at these 5 components of rasa. This is the end dedication of the Southern Ocean by Sri Rupa Goswami. Gopala Rupa Shobham Dadad Api Raghunath Bhava Vistari Tusyatu Sanatana Atma Dakshina Vibhave Surabundi De. Dakshina means southern. One translation, may the eternal person who manifested the beautiful form of a cowherd boy and distributed his bhavas to the form of Rama as well, be pleased with the southern section of this ocean of nectar. Another possible translation is, may Sanatana Goswami, nourisher of the glory of Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Rupa Goswami, and distributor of the prema of Raghunath Das Goswami, be pleased with this southern section of the ocean of nectar. So thank you very much. Anything good in this presentation is from Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Jiva Goswami, whose disappearance day it is today. Anything wrong here is my fault. Please either correct or ignore my mistakes. I hope you have become enlivened by this meditation on the southern section of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion. Krishna willing, I will be teaching through the VIHE, the Western and Northern Oceans, in January. Thank you all. As Hari Parshad Prabhu likes to say, the most important people in a class are the audience. You can always get another speaker, but if there's no audience, there's no class. So the audience is the most important part. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.